At the family dinner, my sister-in-law joked, "Too bad your baby looks nothing like your husband." My husband laughed, "Maybe she has a secret." Everyone joined in. I just smiled, stood up, and handed him an envelope. "Since we're sharing secrets, open this." The laughter stopped. His face turned white. But the exact instant, his eyes found the letterhead at the top of the page, everything changed. DNA Paternity Testing Laboratory was printed in bold professional letters across the top of the document. Below it, in smaller but equally official font, were the words that would haunt him. Conclusive paternity analysis results. I watched his face transform like I was seeing a time-lapse video of aging. The color drained from his cheeks so quickly I thought he might actually faint. His mouth opened slightly, then closed, then opened again like a fish gasping for air. He read the first paragraph, then started again from the beginning. His eyes moved frantically across the page, searching for some mistake, some loophole, some way for this document to say anything other than what it clearly stated. His fingers began to tremble, actually tremble, like he was suffering from some sudden illness. The paper rustled as his hands shook, and that small sound seemed unnaturally loud in the absolute silence that had fallen over the room. 20 years of swagger, of easy confidence, of casual cruelty. All of it crumbled in the space between one heartbeat and the next. This was the man who'd questioned his own son's legitimacy for months, who'd made me feel like a liar in my own home, who'd just thrown me under the bus for a few cheap laughs. Now he couldn't even form words. The silence stretched like taffy, becoming thicker and more suffocating with each passing second. I could hear George's soft breathing through the baby monitor, peaceful and innocent upstairs while his father's world collapsed downstairs. The grandfather clock's ticking suddenly seemed thunderous. Even Maria had stopped moving in the kitchen, probably sensing the tension from 3 rooms away. "What is it, Jared?" Daisy's voice cut through the quiet like a knife. She was leaning forward now, her earlier smugness replaced by vulture-like curiosity. She reached across the table with greedy fingers, trying to snatch the paper from her brother's paralyzed grip. I moved faster than I'd thought possible, stepping forward and placing my hand firmly over the document before she could touch it. My palm covered the results completely, but I could feel the weight of truth beneath my fingers. "Let your son explain what he's been accusing me of for months," I said, my voice carrying a deadly calm that made Patricia actually gasp. The words hung in the air like a curse. Everyone understood now that this wasn't just about whatever was on that paper. This was about months of hidden accusations, private suspicions, and the systematic destruction of trust in our marriage. Jared tried to speak, but only managed a strangled sound that might have been the beginning of my name. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard, then tried again. "Olivia, this isn't." He stopped, apparently realizing that every possible explanation would only make things worse. I waited. Let him struggle. Let them all watch him try to find words that didn't exist for what he'd done. Rebecca cleared her throat nervously. "Maybe we should." "No." I didn't raise my voice, but the single word carried enough authority to silence her immediately. "We shouldn't do anything. Jared should explain to everyone why he felt the need to have his son's paternity tested in secret. Except he didn't do it in secret, did he? He just made accusations, he just planted doubts. He just made me feel like a criminal in my own home." Robert set down his fork with deliberate care. The sound of metal against china sharp and final. "Jared, what is she talking about?" But Jared couldn't answer. The man who had been so quick with cruel jokes and suspicious comments was now mute, staring at the proof of his own shameful behavior, while his family watched him crumble. I removed my hand from the paper, letting them all see the official letterhead, letting the weight of professional documentation speak for itself. Then I walked to George's high chair, where my beautiful son was playing with his food, completely oblivious to the adult drama unfolding around him. I lifted him gently, kissing his forehead as he babbled happily, and reached for my earrings with those perfect little fingers. He smelled like baby shampoo and innocence, like everything pure and good in a world that adults had made ugly with their suspicions and cruelty. When I turned back to face the table, George content in my arms, my silence was more devastating than any accusation I could have made. Because sometimes the truth doesn't need words. It just needs space to breathe. The silence shattered like glass when Jared finally found his voice, though what emerged was hardly recognizable as the confident man who'd been cracking jokes minutes earlier. "Olivia, honey, it was just..." He stumbled over words like a drunk trying to navigate stairs, his face cycling through expressions of panic, shame, and desperate calculation. "You have to understand, it was just family banter. We were all just joking around." I bounced George gently in my arms, feeling his warm weight against my chest like armor. My son gurgled happily, reaching for the chandelier's light with chubby fingers, blissfully unaware that his legitimacy had just been proven beyond any shadow of doubt. "Jokes," I repeated, tasting the word like something bitter. "Is that what we're calling months of questioning your son's paternity? Jokes?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop another 10 degrees. Patricia's wineglass trembled in her grip, and I watched Robert's jaw work silently as the full implications of what I just revealed began to sink in. Jared's hands were still shaking as he set the DNA results on the table. But he couldn't seem to stop looking at them, as if staring might somehow change what they said. "You don't understand the pressure I've been under. People talk, they comment on how different he looks, and what people?" I cut him off, my voice sharp enough to slice steel. "Your sister, your family. The same people who just spent the evening making me feel like an outsider in my own life." Daisy, who had been uncharacteristically quiet since her failed grab for the papers, suddenly found her voice again. "We were just messing around, Olivia." "God, you're being so dramatic about this whole thing." But her bravado was paper-thin now, and everyone could hear it. The woman who delivered that cruel opening line with such poisonous confidence now sounded like she was trying to convince herself as much as everyone else. Messing around, I said, and my laugh was completely devoid of humor. You made a joke about my child's legitimacy in front of his father's entire family. And when my husband, who should have defended us, decided to pile on instead, you all laughed. That's your idea of messing around. George chose that moment to let out a delighted squeal, clapping his hands together as if applauding the performance. The sound was so innocent, so purely joyful that it made the adults' behavior seem even more grotesque by comparison. My calmness was clearly unnerving them more than any screaming fit would have. I could see it in their faces, the way they kept glancing at each other, waiting for me to break down, to give them the emotional explosion that would let them dismiss me as unstable or overreacting. Instead, I just stood there holding my son, letting the truth do all the heavy lifting. It was Robert who broke first. Jared's father, a man who'd built a successful construction business through sheer stubborn pride, and who I'd never once heard admit he was wrong about anything, looked directly at me, with something that might have been respect. I owe you an apology, Olivia. His voice was gruff but sincere. What happened here tonight was completely inappropriate. You deserved better from all of us, especially from my son. The words hit the room like a thunderclap. Patricia's hand flew to her throat, and I saw tears actually forming in her eyes. Genuine tears, not the crocodile variety she deployed at various family gatherings when she wanted sympathy. Oh, sweetheart, she whispered, reaching across the table toward me with trembling fingers. I'm so sorry, we never should have. Jared never told us he was having these doubts, and we certainly never should have participated in that awful joke. Even Rebecca, who'd been whispering and giggling behind her hand just minutes earlier, looked mortified. She kept glancing between her dinner plate and my face, clearly wishing she could disappear entirely. I think I should probably call an Uber, she mumbled to her husband, who nodded eagerly. But it was Daisy's reaction that surprised me most. The woman who'd started this whole mess, who delivered that opening blow with such calculated cruelty, was now staring at me with something that looked almost like fear. You planned this, she said suddenly, her voice high and accusing. You knew exactly what you were doing when you brought that envelope down here. I shifted George to my other hip and smiled. Really? Smiled for the first time all evening. You're absolutely right, I did plan this. Just like you planned that little comment about George not looking like his father. The difference is my plan was based on truth.